February 15th, we're doing a run with Sombra, and I'll be participating with Primer Rebelde de América to represent the true community of Ridgewood and the bond that I've had with Bushwick. We'll be using the medicine that is exercise and is running in order to unify us as one people. I think what's been happening in the community now with the new administration and X, Y, Z, it's all been manifesting for years, decades, generations. This isn't anything new. In the communities, especially Ridgewood, Bushwick, Queens in general, we're in a dark time. We're in a time of extreme adversity. Wounds that have been striked at for generations have been reopened in the last month, 2 months. Wounds that have begun and started at the beginning of the conquest period. So it's nothing new. It's not anything that, unfortunately, our people aren't familiar with. These are all things that, unfortunately, we are familiar with. And I think more than ever, we have to remain true to our goal, which is to secure a better future for people who look like us and love like us. And when I say people who look like us, I mean people of the Americas, people who are descendants or have blood that traces back from Alaska to Chile. That can be our brothers and sisters, relatives who are Inuit. That means our brothers, sisters, and relatives who are Nahuatl. That means brothers, sisters, and relatives who are Quechua. All of our relatives who are in urban environments like Ridgewood, like Bushwick, who aren't necessarily tribalized, but are reconnecting, reclaiming, taking up space as brown indigenous people reconnecting. And I think that's more important now more than ever, especially with what we see today, because I think that there is a problem with the terminology that we use for these people. And for example, like you look at the people that are walking down Seneca Avenue, walking down Myrtle Wyckoff, the people that play Equavol in Maria Hernandez, to me those people aren't immigrants. If you are an original people of the Americas, how does that make you an immigrant to anywhere here? If we're not strictly African from Africa, if we're not strictly European from Europe, if we're not strictly Asian from Asia, then where are we from? We're from the Americas. It's a racial identity that we share together as a union of people, whether we're detribalized, whether we're connected, whether we've been federally recognized. I look around and I see beautiful brown indigenous people everywhere I go in Ridgewood, everywhere I go. I've seen it when I was a kid, and even with all the gentrification that's been happening, it's still very much present today. I never understood why they don't see these people as indigenous, but it never made sense to me. I don't believe in the erasure of our culture. I don't believe in the castration of our culture in order to homogenize towards a colonial term like being Latino, which to me is not a term that I personally identify as, because I believe that it was created to homogenize us and bring us closer to this ideology of what it meant to be colonial. For me, I've always identified with the term indigenous, always identified with the terms of Native American, or going back to my roots as a Colombian, as an Ecuadorian, and finding out what that really means, right? Because I hope that with the work that I do and with all of the community actions that I surround myself with, that we're able to show people, all different ages of all different generations, what it means to be and reclaim our indigenous roots, even if it's simply saying that we are a descendant of indigenous people. That is who we are, right? Because then we gain the education, knowledge, and power to understand that, yeah, like we aren't immigrants, we are an alien. How are we alien in a land that has always been ours? Our people, our ancestors in the Americas have known no other home. No other home. We were originating here. We're an original people from the Americas. We were birthed here. I've spoken with elders who have told me their creation stories. And they've told me, yeah, we've been here since time immemorial, the beginning of time. How does that make me, my parents, my grandparents, anyone that came to the US, how does that make them an immigrant? It doesn't. But that was a term that unfortunately was forced upon us, and some of us even adopted out of fear. And I never blame our own people for any of that. It's not their fault. I brought the Colombian flag with me. I identify with that more than ever this year because I've made it a goal of mine to reconnect with my Colombian identity. It's been more difficult to do that than with my Ecuadorian identity, simply because of the difference in the family history that I have with going back, with speaking with relatives. It's just been a completely different challenge on its own. 2025, I feel like, has been a year of revolution. And when I say revolution, I don't mean like an armed revolution or anything. I just mean a revolution of the minds, right? So for me, this is like a year of new beginnings. I want to begin the new year with beginning a journey down a path of reconnecting with my Colombian ancestry. Yeah, that was why I was like, cool. cool. Like, let's bring the Colombian flag. Let's have that. I'll fly that. For me personally, the way that I connect with my ancestry, I remember to continue existing the way that I do. And the way that I continue to exist the way that I do is by remaining truthful, by remaining unapologetic with the things I say. When I'm speaking about why the terminology of Latino, or why calling certain people immigrants, the people who are descendants of the true people of the Americas, I stay steadfast in that. That's how I connect with my ancestry, because for me, that's how I remain true to them. That's how I honor them. That's how I continue to make sure that they live through the words that I speak. Advice that I have for other people is, for me, it was a journey of my own. And I think that it's a journey for everyone to take, and that's why I've never told anyone, oh, you need to identify this way, or you need to stop using this term, or you need to start using this term, because everyone is different. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own family history. Everyone's a unique person as far as like the way that they operate through these reconnections. What I would say is just remain true. Stay steadfast in whatever work it is. I would never tell anyone how to do it exactly, because there's no right or wrong way to do it. You have to find out your way to do it. It's different for everyone. We all share and we all have similar stories of how we reconnect and stories of how people realize and understand these things, but the journeys we take are very different sometimes. So for me, it was going back and speaking with my grandmother and finding photos, and then going back to Ecuador and then speaking with my family there, and then going to where my great-grandmother lived and going to her home and praying. And that's what it was for me, amongst other things. But for someone else, it might be simpler. For someone else, it might be more difficult. The universal path that we all take is a path of truth. So just being truthful with yourself about the work that you want to do. I do the storytelling through fashion. That was the initial idea. How do I take these ideas that I learned, or take these stories that I've heard, or little pieces of, like keys almost, that I want to share with the world? How do I get that across to as many people as I can? And for me, it was fashion, and it is fashion because to me, it's one of the most universal pieces of storytelling in today's age. The first 2 years of my brand, I didn't sell anything. I was doing one-of-ones. Nothing was for sale. You know, I could make something that says American Holocaust on it. I could shoot it. I could do like a lookbook. I could just take a picture of the t-shirt. And because I understand the art of storytelling through clothing, through t-shirts especially, it's visually striking. But what it says is more important than what it is, right? Anybody can make a t-shirt that says American Holocaust on it, but it's the point of how it was done and who did it and who it's for. Some kid will go and see that t-shirt on my Instagram, or someone will be wearing it, or my friends will repost it, and they'll be like, American Holocaust? What is that? What is that, American Holocaust? You know what I mean? And then they Google it on their own. And then it's like, oh, this is a book written that is essentially like a mini encyclopedia about every single atrocity that took place from 1492 up until the Mayan genocide. Most people don't even know that there was a Mayan genocide. Most people don't even know that the Mayans existed in the 80s, 90s. It's like, right there, they taught themselves all of that. They opened the door to all that. I didn't have to like get up on a milk box and like preach and say, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. Like, no, you saw something that was visually striking, intriguing, sparked your own curiosity, and then you went and you did the work yourself. I've had people who, like, for example, like with the Indigenous Not Latino t-shirt, I had someone come up to me and be like, yo, like, I didn't know what that even meant. And I went and I was talking to my grandmother and I was asking her like what it means to be indigenous Mexican, and then my grandmother started speaking Nahuatl to me, and I didn't even know that my grandmother spoke Nahuatl. I didn't even know that she spoke another language that wasn't Spanish. And when he told me that, like, I got chills, because I was like, whoa, that's what the work's about. It's not about selling the thing. I could treat it like an art piece. I could treat it like a canvas. I could put it up on my Instagram, right? Photograph it however I want, and then someone will see it, and then it will begin a revolution of their mind, the individual, and then they'll go to someone else, share the story. That's how the work has been related to me. The most powerful, strong moments that I've had have been when people have told me, like, I saw that t-shirt you did. I saw that t-shirt that said, in memory of 1492, 100 million brothers and sisters lost in the American Holocaust. I didn't even know that what happened to our people was considered a Holocaust, and it was. 100 million people, 100 million of our relatives were lost from 1492 onward, plus probably, even more now especially. It's not about the clothes, but it is only because the clothes is the artful way of getting that young kid or that person to want to know about this. I've been in the fashion industry since I was a sophomore in high school. So I understand how to make things look cool. I understand how to make someone want to wear something. There's an art to it. I understand it. I know it. The problem that I faced when I had my moment of this epiphany of what my identity really was, how my identity was stolen before me before I was even born, I was like, man, like, how do I relay this? You know, because I was classically trained as an actor for 6 years. I was a writer. I was also studying to be a writer. I wanted to write essays. I wanted to pursue a career in academia. I had such a hard time in school. From the beginning of my schooling as a child all the way till I was in conservatory, I was in college for the short time that I was in there. I've been told that as a child, like when I was like 9 or 10, that like I was gonna end up in jail as an adult. I've been kicked out of programs for no reason. I went through the ringer in my schooling from the beginning to the end of it. And for me, I always understood, I'm like, there's a kid out there like me that if you try to hand them a book, they're gonna be like, yo, like, I'm not reading that. I don't wanna read that, because they have a foul relationship with schooling. Their teachers were actively working against them. Their teachers were not caring about their specific circumstances, not catering to them in the way that a caretaker, a teacher is supposed to, right? Someone who's sharing and giving knowledge, they didn't care, right? So this kid, this young guy, who's maybe he's even younger than me, he's gonna give me a book? I'm not reading that. Or, oh, he's gonna put on a play or something? I'm not going to that. What? There's like a disconnect, you understand? Like I had to do like 100 times more work to like make the connection between that kind of work and the people I was trying to reach out to with social media, with, you know, the knowledge that I learned through fashion. I don't have to even bring you anywhere. You don't have to come to a playhouse. You don't have to come to a bookstore. You could be sitting on your couch with your family, or you could be on the train on the way home from work, and you could see a t-shirt that says American Holocaust, or you could see a video of me saying Indigenous, not Latino, or you could see, you know, a pin, or you could see a blazer that has like a graphic that has like a Latino cross through it. You know what I mean? And you're like, whoa, what is that? You know what I mean? And then you look through like this like archive that I'm creating with the brand Primer Rebelde, and then it's like, boom. Oh, okay. The resources are there. I use like the fashion as like a sweet treat almost. Like I was like, yo, like this is like the cool way to do it so that everybody can enjoy it, especially like with the way that I feel about t-shirts. Like t-shirts are the most democratic piece of clothing. Everybody wears a t-shirt. Everybody knows what a t-shirt is. Everybody has a t-shirt. Like it's the most democratic piece of clothing. For me, I'm like, yeah, like that's my canvas. That's my book. That's my stage. You know what I mean? It's a t-shirt. So the way that I use storytelling to combat violent rhetoric or misinformation is by working with the communities that I belong to. There's not like a Primer Rebelde, like we own this community. Like, no, there are communities that have existed way before us, that are gonna continue to exist way after us, that we belong to. Primer Rebelde is a part of the community of Ridgewood. It's a part of the community of Bushwick. It's a part of the community of Queens, of New York City, of a greater indigenous Alaska to Chile, right? That's the community that we belong to, and that's what informs the storytelling. So when I work with people like New York City Migrant Solidarity, I'm talking to my people there and they're letting me know like the needs, or they're letting me know the challenges that they're facing. That's what informs the work, because they're the ones who are really at the front line of all this. They're the ones who are the most marginalized, the most targeted. They're the ones who are facing constant physical violence. You know, it's not just mental, emotional, spiritual violence they're facing. They're facing real violence, real physical violence, these people, for simply existing. For me, it's like the way that I combat the violent rhetoric, the negativity, is by making sure that I'm constantly involving the communities that I belong to in the work that I do. Otherwise, yeah, it's just a clothing brand. I guess that's cool, but like that's not what I want to do. I need to have my finger on the pulse and understand like, okay, like these are the necessities, these are the needs right now. And then, okay, like I have to shift what I'm doing so that I can be a more informed voice. How do I use the platform that is Primer Rebelde, the entity that is becoming? The goal is to have Primer Rebelde de América exist on its own without me, so that there's Primer Rebelde and then there's Víctor Vegas. I wanted to be able to become the idea that it is. You can't end an idea, you can't kill an idea, right? It's like a combat of ideologies. the warfare of ideologies. What we believe and what we understand and what we hold as our truths, holding that up with the utmost confidence, with the strength of everything that we have inside of us. Basically just being relentless, never stopping. When we speak about something as serious as the reality that the people of the neighborhood, the community of Ridgewood, the community of Bushwick, Queens, New York City, what they're facing, that's when I feel like it becomes a very different conversation. Where do we draw the line between where this sort of becomes like too much, essentially? Really, like, where do we draw the line, right? For example, like, I started this brand because I felt like I was powerless after receiving news about the Walmart massacre in 2019, in August of 2019. A white nationalist went to a Walmart and he wrote a manifesto about this great alien invasion that was happening in the Americas and how there were a bunch of Mexicans and, Mexicans and other essentially brown people invading the United States. He massacred, like, I think almost 24 people, innocent people. For me, when that happened, I was already almost 3 years into the work that I was doing in order to reclaim my identity. I was just at a loss for words. I didn't know what to do. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a mathematician. I'm a creative. That's what I have to offer. This is what I can do. I can create this vehicle, Primer Rebelde, in order to carry these ideologies so that we can give some sort of medicine to our people. These ideas, these themes that I speak about. But then you look at like what's happening right now today, where it's a consistent, constant violence that we face, like a real beating every single day. It's something much more serious than like anything. It's just too serious. It's not too serious to speak about. We've gotten to another level. Throughout history, there is a threshold for these kinds of things where they happen and then there's change. What I hope and I pray for is that I once had an elder tell me that real change comes when the pain of not changing outweighs the pain of changing. When it hurts too much to not do anything and it hurts less to do something, that's when the real change happens. It's an unfortunate, fortunate occurrence that happens, but I think that we're at that point of time. I just hope and I pray that however we move forward, that we use the most revolutionary weapon of all, which is love. I mean that to the fullest extent because for me, my work primarily has to do with loving oneself. How do we unlearn and then relearn these things, these stories, our culture, our history, the history of our race? How do we learn to love ourselves again for who we really are, who we truly are, right? And then we can figure out how to medicine the rest of it. We really need to lead with love in that way, where we learn to love ourselves, love each other, and move with that. The cost of us not uniting is that we're like crabs in a barrel. We're just hurting each other. For example, like I have relatives from the Navajo Nation and they're posting on their stories about how, oh, carry your CIB, carry your Indian identification card because ICE is illegally detaining people. And I'm like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that ICE is confusing you for a Mexican or a brown person of south of the border? Maybe it's because we're all the same people. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's because we're all the same people. And I laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's like, to me, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about with the change. It's like, all right, we've gotten to a point now where the points are being made for us in a violent way. So the point that I've been trying to make for the past 5 years with Primer Rebelde about indigenous people of the Americas all being related, all being of one race, now the point is being proven to us, unfortunately by a violent force. You have an ICE officer who is looking at a man of Navajo descent, who's Native American, right? Legally recognized as a part of a tribe. He's federally recognized, he has CIB, he has Indian identification, but they're seeing him as an illegal alien, immigrant. Why is it that someone who is of Mexican, Ecuadorian, Venezuelan descent being confused with someone who is of Navajo descent? Why is that? Why? Why is that? What is the cause of us not uniting? This happens. The points are made by our enemies. They're not made by us. They're not made with our relatives. The points are made by the enemies, and unfortunately, when the enemy has that much control, that much power, they will choose violence time and time again. So that's the cost of it, is that we will be put under violence like that. And then there's division, and then there's division because, for example, like I'm over there at the Seminole powwow and I'm wearing a pin that says with the Latino cross too. And I had someone come up to me and say, oh yeah, we need those because we need people to think and know that we're not Latino. I'm like, yo, dog, you missed the point. It went right over your head. I really don't know what it's gonna take. Like I said, the points are being made for us now. And I keep saying that over and over again because I have these conversations with myself time and time again, every day. What more is it gonna take? Are they gonna have to throw us in camps again? Or are they gonna have to exile us even further? Are they gonna have to bring back the spirit of manifest destiny across the Americas, not just in the United States? So that's the cost of it, right? That's the cost of it, is that we're now putting the solution in our enemy's hands. And you can't trust your enemy to give you a right and peaceful solution. That great saying, what relationship does the sword have with the neck? So that's the cost of it. The opportunity that we have, which is the hope that I have that one day, maybe my children will experience the peace of the unity of indigenous peoples from Alaska to Chile. The hope is that one day we can live and understand each other on a level that has never been seen before since before the conquest period. And when I say that, I don't mean like something completely imaginary, like we're gonna live solely just native peoples in the Americas. No, I mean something very real, very materially, which is a Latino people who wish to identify as indigenous being told that that is okay for them. The opportunity is that we can truly unite, that we can truly live together, that we can be accepted, right? I'm constantly having to battle mental, spiritual battles with people who do not understand what I'm trying to say. And what now we're being faced with is, like I said, like now there's less and less room to take these ideologies that do not belong to me. This whole idea of indigenous, not Latino, has existed since the beginning of the concept of the Latinidad, which is essentially the beginning of the conquest period, right? These ideas have existed. They continue to exist. They will continue to exist way after me, way after Primer Rebelde, right? I did not come up with indigenous, not Latino, right? So these solutions that are being presented by the reconnecting peoples of places in New York City like Ridgewood and Bushwick, where you have the Puerto Ricans on the Bushwick Twins lot, or the Puerto Ricans of Myrtle Wyckoff, or the Ecuadorians in Bushwick, XYZ, who are understanding and learning these things, and then they're choosing to reconnect and reclaim and say that they are indigenous. I hope that one day they are accepted and understood as indigenous. That one day, the many native nations of the United States, of Canada, when they come to New York, when they come visit, when they come to our homes, they see all these beautiful people and they accept them and understand that that is what indigenous culture looks like here today, so that we can just move on. This almost like inner battle that we're facing amongst our own people is, I hate to say it, but it's like peanuts compared to the other things that we have to speak about. But we can't move forward unless we do this. You can't move with the revolutionary weapon of love until you learn to love yourself and love your own people. You can't do it. So we need to unlearn these things. We need to teach ourselves, teach others, hold each other, understand each other, confront these issues together, come to a point of acceptance amongst all indigenous peoples of the Americas, and then move forward into these bigger things. Imagine if every single brown and indigenous person of the Americas was like, oh yeah, like we're indigenous. The Latino people, I've said it from the beginning, they're the sleeping giant. They're the sleeping giant. I mean, we make up, at one point I knew it was like 70% of the population. Obviously not all those people identify as indigenous or can or will, but just imagine if 30% of them did. You know what I mean? Like, that's what the work is about. The work isn't about selling the clothes. The work isn't about, we're doing this cool thing. Like, no. It's providing a cultural medicine so that we can find the solution throughout all this, that we can unify with, and then we can move forward to bigger issues, to more important things. This idea of people being indigenous, not Latino, to me, it's really not that difficult to understand. It really isn't. And I'm trying to help people understand it, trying to take on what was done before me and push it forth into this new channel that is Primer Rebelde. I don't think there's like a new genocide that started. Like, it's been going on, it's been happening. It's not new. This is just a continuation of the many things that occurred from 1492 onward. It's one string that has been threaded to where we are today. It's not something that's new. It's not a new threat. It's mutated, it's evolved, but it's the same beast, same animal. The way that I relate this to the work that we do today is being able to come to places like El Molcajete, formerly known as Guadalajara, and being able to share the space and celebrate the time and the things that we have today. For me, it's always been about securing a better future for people who look like us and love like us. And I need to do that and not achieve it every day, but make sure that I'm moving towards that goal every day. And some days I might get as close as I can that day to achieving it, which for example was like when I did the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration here. And we did free food and we did free t-shirts and we had cultural musical acts. We had this whole corner, this whole block of Seneca and Menahan. It looked like a literal dream come true to me. My dream is to one day secure a better future for people who look like us and love like us, which will allow us to live in peace. All of this work that we do is so that we can achieve true peace. I feel like that's an eternal battle, right? But there's ways that we can come closer to the peace compared to what we have today. When I am able to witness moments like that where we all come together in places like this, in the true places of Ridgewood, not the places that continue to gentrify, not the people who continue to gentrify. Gentrification is neo-colonialism. It's an evolution of that same colonialism that has been known for generations, right? When you're able to basically go to a property, pick it up, and then kick out all of its original inhabitants and whatever happens to them, because we're gonna build a coffee house or a studio or whatever anything that they build here now that has been getting rid of the original culture of this neighborhood. That is the thread that is strung along from the original days of conquest. The way that my father and grandfather talk about Williamsburg in the 80s, they said by the time that I was a young kid, Williamsburg was a completely different neighborhood. They never would have thought something like that was gonna happen. Never. Will it be Williamsburg? No. It's unreal, right? But it happened. It's continuing to happen. I mean, I think Williamsburg is pretty much like fully gentrified, and I think Bushwick is almost there, and I think Ridgewood actually kind of got to the same place that Bushwick was at even quicker. All that we can do to combat that is to uphold the true members, the true places, the true history of these communities that we belong to. So like I said, like highlighting and upholding places like El Molcajete, which is where we're at right now. Working with and holding high the vendors of Myrtle Wyckoff Plaza. Working with mutual aid groups like New York City Migrant Solidarity, right? That's where the real work is done. That's when you actually put your boots on the ground and you go and you make sure that everything you're staying true to it. Making sure that El Molcajete doesn't go out of business. Making sure that Carlos's Pizzeria right across the street doesn't go out of business. Making sure that Super Pollo doesn't go out of business. Making sure that we continue to have spaces like IS 93 Park where they play Equavol or Maria Hernandez. Making sure Myrtle Wyckoff Plaza, making sure that these places remain safe for us to continue inhabiting, making sure that these places continue to prosper as they do. Because one day we might look back, not even forget about 20 years, 15, not even 10 years, we might look back and be like, whoa, what happened? We let it go right through our hands. Like we lost grip. We lost grip of the realities that were happening. Yeah, we need to make sure that we uphold these places, that we make sure that the storytelling is in unison with what these places, peoples, and things need and especially want. If the work isn't informed, then it's just whatever it is, that's what it is. It's not anything else. Primer Rebelde is Primer Rebelde because of the communities that we belong to. Otherwise, it's just another clothing brand. Or there's a XYZ, there's a run club that just exists, that doesn't care about anything. There's so many things that open up in this neighborhood that say, oh, community, oh, this. And it's like, I know you don't care. I know you don't care. Because you have people who continue to, I won't get into that, but I just know it. I constantly have to have my finger on the pulse in this community that I belong to because I want to and I need to.